Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host Greg Thompson along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, how we doing?
I'm living the dream, brother. I just found out today that the Bills are indeed going to go 17-0 this year. The schedule came out, so I got to confirm that. So we can talk about how they're going to get there tonight.
That is awesome. It is interesting, and I think that we've kind of been, part of that discussion going back and forth with people of, hey, we already know who the opponents are and we already, know where everything is. Why did everybody go through this? I can't lie, it is kind of fun to finally see the schedule and when each of the games are, and I don't know that I understand why everybody tries so hard to scoop the leaks the last 48, 24 hours when we're all going to know tonight, but I thought it was interesting how the NFL handled it. They released all the week one games ahead of time. Then you saw all of the Monday night games or Sunday night games come out, and then so we kind of knew some pieces of it. And then all the teams actually leaked it intentionally, like an extra 15 minutes or 30 minutes beforehand. So you could tell the NFL was a little more strategic about it here rather than just getting scooped by everybody.
Yeah, my problem with it isn't so much I get excited for seeing the schedule. I'm not ever saying that I'm not excited for that. It's the desire to get the scoop and sort of I think there's something back in the day when everybody would get the schedule at the same time because there was no scoops really on these, or wasn't really the platform. Like Twitter wasn't quite that platform before. It was always fun for everyone to kind of get it at the same time and digest it at the same time and go through it, where it's such a crazy dash to get that information that there's a bunch of guessing, there's people's projections, it gets messy. And I get that it's fun and it's filler right now. If you don't watch any other sports, it's filler right now for the NFL to talk about this type of stuff. So I understand where it comes from. It's just not something for me. But now that it's out, there's really nothing else to talk about. We could talk about interest in Steven Nelson and free agency and the 14 possible teams. But that's it for football news, right? We've got nothing else to digest. So let's rip this thing apart.
Yeah, let's go ahead and dive right in. We will share the schedule and we'll give kind of some overall views. And then like a football game, the way we treat it all the time, we'll kind of take a look at each quarter of the season. So, a handful of high-level takeaways in what we're looking at here. The Bills don't ever have more than 2 consecutive home games or road games. That's kind of a nice, there's no weird stretches like that where they have 3 or 4 road or home games in a row. They open up with 3 at home, 3 out of 4 at home, and they end with 3 out of 4 at home. I kind of like that. It does make the middle stretch a little bit tougher when you look at where the bye week is. They have 4 out of 5 games, but it's 4 out of 6 weeks on the road. The week 7 bye is a little earlier than normal. Are you a guy who cares whether it's an early or late season bye?
If I have a choice, I'd prefer a little later in the season. I like to come off that bye, and we talk about runs a lot to finish the season. It's nice to come off of maybe like a month and a half of football left after your bye. I think would be the perfect amount, but I trust Sean McDermott the teams that are this good. Where the bye week falls isn't an excuse for how the season. This isn't the drought era Bills where I can use the early bye as a blaming as why the season went wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's interesting. One thing that I noticed when I was looking at it, I loved the fact I scrambled to research every single one of the games right as soon as it came out. The Bills, for the second year in a row, play 0 teams coming off of a bye. That's just such a nice bonus. It's not some world-changing thing, but a lot of Bills fans know and remember, through the late 2010, aughts and into the 2010s, there was a nasty stretch where the Bills played the most teams coming off a bye, like 4 out of 5 years. And it was just, hey, come on, at some point you got to pay attention to that and not continually give the same teams less rest coming off of it. So now flipping that around when the team's actually good and finally having back-to-back seasons where no team is coming off a bye. And honestly, I've searched through it. I can't find any game where we even have less rest, because the games where we would be coming off, like the Monday nighter and things like that with Tennessee, we go into a bye week. So we're not playing a team off of a short week after the Monday night game. So different pieces like that. It's actually pretty interesting. The only tough one where we're short is coming off the Monday night game and then on the road into Tampa to see Tom Brady. That's the only one that's short by 1 day. Every other game we are equal or have more rest than the opponent.
Good. Excellent. They know what I mean, though, like the less sort of built-in excuses. We'll get into it a little bit here. There's some tough stretches in this schedule, and you'd hate it to be tougher by dealing with teams that have extra days more often than normal. And that was a super frustrating thing for Bills fans, because it's always one of those things where you look like Charlie from It's Always Sunny, in the gif of him like coming out with the conspiracies. And I always sounded like that crazy fan when I was explaining to other fan bases, like, well, the Bills had to deal with this team coming off a bye, and this team had a rest, and the Bills had a short week. And they're like, okay, sure, you guys got screwed. But it felt year in and year out. So to be the team not having to deal with that while your team's good, I can sit and not care about other teams bitching about this for the rest of the year. Like, we're good. I don't have to worry about these things. And it's nice to not worry about it during the year, because us Bills fans, man, we get a little panicky when that type of stuff hits us. If our team's good, we can't handle another team having some bye week ahead of us. It would be the talk of the whole week. So that stuff, when we're doing our previews, we don't even have to deal with those questions and the concerns and the angst of being a Bills fan.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting. You see some people commenting. Steelers fans, I've already seen a lot of people not happy that they play the Bills week 1. It's kind of fun to be in that position. I love Richard's comment there. And yeah, I do think Nick's right that Aaron does have a striking resemblance to Pepe Silva.
I'm missing this reference.
That's the character that Charlie's playing in It's Always Sunny, when he does the conspiracy things. He's the investigator, Pepe Silva. So Clavs picked out another one that I was going to save for later, but I think it's a great comment. When you have an early bye, I'm not a fan either. I prefer the later season bye, and I think that's a better alignment. There is a little bit of a mini bye later on. So New Orleans and Buffalo are both traveling, so the Bills are coming off a home game into the Thanksgiving game. New Orleans is coming off the road into the Thanksgiving game, so kind of equals out one road trip in between the short week of 4 days for both teams. Then coming off of that, the Bills get an 11-day stretch all the way from the Thursday night Thanksgiving game to the following Monday night. So they get an extra 3 or 4 days than you normally would. It's not the same as a bye week, but 4 extra days later on is a nice stretch where, they probably would, when you have a Monday night game, he probably gives them the extra Monday or Tuesday off anyways. Here we add in the Friday, Saturday, Sunday where you're coming off the Thursday night game. That's more treatment, that's more rest, and later on in the season, 4 days is better than nothing to be able to be in that stretch. So it's kind of like having a sneaky bit of a little bit of a bye later on, even though it's going from week 13 into 14.
I like it. I like the stretch, but I'm not going to let you convince me to call it a mini bye at any point this season. So, but I like it. I like the stretch. This is your new big nickel.
I will die on that hill all by myself that there's a mini bye. So like we do during the season and how we approach every season, I'm going to shoehorn this in there because there's 17 games now and it hurts my brain that it's not 4 sets of 4 for the 4 quarters, but we're going to figure it out here. Let's open it up. When we look at, I'm a big fan, and I joke with people all the time. I would have been totally fine if we opened up Jacksonville, Carolina, Jets. I like having the easier games early.
Sure.
Get your wins under your belt. Injuries and crazy stuff happens later on in the season. Games that look super tough end up being not that bad because you have guys injured or hurt, or the team ends up not being as good. I like sometimes getting those there. I think it's a mix in these first 4 games. I don't know that Pittsburgh is exactly what they were historically. I don't think that, I think Miami's better, but I don't know that they're fantastic. I don't hate getting that road trip out of the way early, but sometimes that Miami game can be a hot one down there. Washington did win the division last year, and then Houston, we don't know. We might be facing Deshaun Watson. It might be Tyrod Taylor. What are your thoughts on that opening quarter?
Yeah, it's tough to know what teams you're going to get right in May. But I think just, kind of comparing from where we saw these teams last and what we've seen with the additions, I think Washington's actually the sneakiest, most difficult game probably there. I just maybe it's my Terry McLaurin standing, but I think that's a probably more pesky team early
I
on.
would rank them the hardest out of those four.
Yeah, I think Miami's a good team, but I think that you have a lot of familiarity there. I think Josh is pretty comfortable. Until I see them come in and handle Josh, I'm not going to worry about Miami really doing anything. And I apologize to any Dolphins fans watching. That's just how it is right now. So this is a nice opening stretch. And I agree with you that I don't want KC early on. I don't want the big, tough matchups. We talked about it all last year, and we saw it play out that your team isn't necessarily, who they're going to be in that first quarter of the season. We might not know who this team's going to be until mid-November, late November. There's a tough stretch there of who is this team really going to be. And so I don't want to, that KC and Tennessee game is even a little early for my liking, where I'd like to see that a little bit later in the season when the Bills are really hitting their stride as to what type of team we're going to see in the playoffs. I don't want to get those marquee games out of the way too early when your team hasn't fully hit their stride and you haven't been able to get a real measuring stick of what your team is against the best in the league. Because it's on the schedule. You got all the best teams in the league, pretty much, besides Cleveland, that the Bills are going to have to play this year.
Yeah. And so it's interesting. Some of the schedule quirks, obviously Danny's supporting my fantastic take that it's called the mini buy. We appreciate Danny's support. The setup for the schedule making is obviously you play the other first place teams. So Kansas City makes total sense.
Right.
I kind of think we get a bonus that Pittsburgh won that division instead of Cleveland. I think Cleveland's better than Pittsburgh. Right. I think Washington is rightfully there. If you asked me if we were going to play Washington or Dallas, maybe, I'm not sure. I think Washington's defense is by far the best unit of any in that division, but that's probably one of the lesser divisions. So getting them as the new 17th game intra-conference matchup, I don't think is terrible. But that's where some of those matchups come from later on. Obviously, Kansas City and Tennessee are in the next quarter of the season here. Those are the ones that were aligned with where it is. Moving into that second quarter, this stretch is going to be a big proving ground. I kind of like that there's 4 games out of the way, but then we go back-to-back primetime games, back-to-back road trips to Kansas City and Tennessee, kind of flipped around from where it was last year. We had that weird stretch with the crazy weather and the COVID rescheduling and a weird stretch. I kind of like that they get a chance to kind of redeem themselves against those same 2 teams. National audience, primetime games, 5th and 6th game of the season, so you've gotten your bearings, but it should be in a good, healthy stretch. Before the bye week and before we get to the rest of the quarter, what are your thoughts on what a lot of people will deem that toughest back-to-back stretch of the season?
Yeah, the Kansas City-Tennessee games are going to stand out as not scary because I trust this team and I feel like this 2021 Bills team is going to be able to go toe-to-toe with any team in the league. But when I'm looking at the schedule, obviously, I don't love that they're back-to-back. I hated it last year. I hate having big primetime games back-to-back like that against really good teams. I think Tennessee's still right up there. I don't know why they don't get talked about enough. We're hearing all this talk about the Browns being a threat to the AFC. I think Tennessee needs to be right in that conversation still. I don't think they fell off from where they were 2 years ago. So these games terrify me. It's nice to get a bye week after this again to, if you're going to have a bye week early, get it after getting beat up by 2 physical teams.
Yep.
Win or lose,
and
these games are going to be, this is going to be big time football, prime time football. Guys are going to be playing at another level against very physical teams. You're going to need a rest after back-to-back games like that. And then it's nice to come into Miami, Jacksonville, and we'll go a step further here with the Jets to build up a little confidence before another difficult stretch through November, early December. So I do like the back end of this of you get that bye, and then you get some teams that you're comfortable with. I think even though Jacksonville has some excitement for the future, I think they're still going to be a team that NFL teams beat up on for a year or two. So it's nice to build a little bit of confidence coming off the bye, regardless of how that goes at KC and Tennessee. That's a tough stretch. You can get beyond it with a bye, build up some confidence, and like we pressed last year, go into late November, hitting your stride, playing the best football that you can heading towards playoffs.
Yeah, and I think there's some tough elements here where 4 out of these 5 games are on the road. I don't hate that you have the bye week and a home game in between there, so you get the bye week, plus you don't have to travel. But then going down to Jacksonville, and then out to New York. Those are games you should win, but there's maybe a little added complexity when you're talking about, your fourth and fifth games out of 6 on the road. Hopefully that doesn't start to drag on people. Some of those different pieces. I don't hate that it's set up that way, but that can maybe add some complexity to games that.
Sure.
I would have loved to have that Jacksonville game in between Kansas City or Tennessee, or that Miami game in between Kansas City or Tennessee to spread those out. But that's the kind of stretch they're coming off the bye, home for Miami, at Jacksonville, New York. You have to sweep that. You have to go 3-0 there to be able to get the kind of seeding that you're looking for in the playoffs. And I think that's maybe a little tougher with coming off of that many road games in a row to add to that.
If you're going to be flying around the country, though, like this, it really couldn't get a better setup, I don't think, for the Bills. Kansas City's the furthest, and the only you had mentioned that earlier, the only time zone change, and then you're here on the East Coast.
I was just informed that New Orleans is in the Central Time Zone. I genuinely didn't know that.
Interesting.
New Orleans is Central Time. Now, neither game matters because
I'm not worried about
both Kansas City and New Orleans are primetime games.
Sure.
So sometimes you worry about, East traveling west or west traveling the body clock stuff. Honestly, I think it's a slight benefit that the night games are actually an hour or two earlier on body clock. It's probably, and not something material or big, but it's probably slightly better that if you're going to have ones that are in a different time zone, it's on the primetime games that you're bringing back more towards daytime.
Sure.
But yeah, those are the only ones. And somebody retweeted that at me after I said that the Kansas City was the only non-Eastern time zone. I was like, I didn't know that. I thought the New Orleans was in the Eastern time zone.
Hey, you learned something new.
Yeah, I learned something new today. It was very exciting.
But, obviously the KC Tennessee, that's tough. There's no way to slice that as a back-to-back road game. Yeah. But then if your 4 out of 5 is then going to be Jacksonville and the Jets, both in the trip that it is, it's a quick trip down and back.
Yep.
And the teams in the level that you're playing against, I don't think is going to be so difficult that it's hard to overcome or really should put it down the season. I agree with you. You should be able to sweep that. And I think you're going to have to. I think the way this sets up, I don't think you're getting through that KC Tennessee game or stretch without losing one of those games. You're probably going to slip up somewhere in that first quarter. You're going to come up against some really good teams here throughout that next stretch. And you want to go into it with a little bit of house money in case you slip up through here, because it could get real hairy this year. That I don't think there's going to be a big gap for the Bills in terms of who wins that AFC East, title and who gets a home playoff game. I think that gap's going to shrink on them this year.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I've had this come up with a couple people asking, when you see the asterisks here for eligible to flex scheduling, we're only thinking about it from the positive end, that we could be flexed into a game. The reason that you see some of those primetime games with the flex asterisks is that, in theory, we could be flexed out of it. So I'll actually use New Orleans as a good example of what Danny's asking here. If New Orleans in the post-Breeze era, for some reason,
just terrible,
it goes off the rails, and Taysom Hill and Jameis, Winston aren't the answer, and they're like, 2-10.
We can't show Buffalo
going into that game.
On these.
Correct. They're not going to have Buffalo just destroy New Orleans in a game like that. They might flex that and move it somewhere else. That the same thing with some of those other games. More likely, Indy would be flexed into one. Some of the other pieces there. I think it's unlikely they'd move.
They let Detroit play on Thanksgiving every year, so we're used to bad football.
Oh yeah,
on Thanksgiving.
I think it's unlikely they would move a Thanksgiving game, but that's why that asterisk is there.
Available to them.
I'll say I think the Kansas City Tennessee is the toughest back-to-back throughout the entire season. I think the third quarter is the toughest quarter as a whole. The 4 games going Indy at home, at New Orleans on a short week, New England at home on a Monday nighter, at Tampa Bay and the Tony Romo, Jim Nantz prime CBS window there. That 4-game stretch is a tough one with Indy at New Orleans, New England, Tampa.
It's the meat of this schedule, 100%. These are good teams. We're right across the board here.
Yeah, sure. I have questions about New Orleans like everybody else. They still have a lot of Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas and Cam Jordan, and they still have a lot of talented guys on that team.
They have a good defense. They'll be able to put something together. It's not going to be. I'll be surprised if there's a chance that it could be a really easy victory, but I'll be surprised. I'm going to assume that these are all good teams across the board, well-coached teams. And even if New Orleans is a bit of a breeze, it's still, I think, the toughest quarter.
Agreed.
If you're
Yeah,
slicing it into
no
quarters.
matter what, that's still the easiest game of the four already, regardless
Yes.
of how easy it is.
Right.
The other three are going to be tough. I know fans want to crap on New England. They're going to be better this year, whether you
They're
guys
gonna
like
be
it or
better.
not. New England's going to be better this year.
Yeah.
They spent way too much money. I don't know
Tons of
about
money,
those
and
contracts long term, but they're going to make the team better in 2021.
they'll make the team better, and they got guys back.
Yes.
Straight up, they lost a lot of guys from.
Oh yeah, Dante
South
Hightower,
Africa.
some legit players opted out that are coming back that are going to help them.
So I think they're going to be better. I think that even if it's Cam, I think he'll be playing better another year in the system. I think they're legitimate, and they, obviously the Bills spanked them that second game, but that first game, man, was down to a very lucky fumble for the Bills at the end of that game to secure it. Cam was on his way to win that game. So my confidence is I'm happy the Bills swept the Patriots. I hope that they are able to do it again, but I think this team is more of a challenge. So this stretch here, I think, is tough, but this is exactly where Brandon Beane and Leslie Frazier talk about, or Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier all talk about hitting your stride. I think really this is the stretch. By that Indy game, you have to have your stuff figured out, because you can't afford to drop a game like that, a game like New England. Those games are going to matter in your playoff seeding. I think both those teams are going to be there fighting for playoff spots. And obviously, you want to perform against the defending Super Bowl champions. I think that's a potential look ahead to a potential Super Bowl matchup. I think that's
PFF already posted it as, is this a Super Bowl preview?
It might be a preview. It might be one of the marquee games of the year. So I think this stretch is super important. And really, this Bills team has to have it together by that Indianapolis game, or they could get in some trouble here in this stretch.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how they pull some of those things together here. And I think it does lead into a pretty favorable fourth quarter, honestly. When you talk about 3 out of 4 games at home, the 3 home games are probably going to be 3 of the bigger Bills favorites of the season, short of maybe that Houston home game. Carolina and the Jets at home are for sure going to be 2 of the bigger Vegas favorite games, and depending on how Atlanta's season goes, they've been really good in years, and last year they drafted 4th for a reason.
Yeah, I have no reason to believe.
Go great.
Yeah, I have no reason to believe that Atlanta game is going to be tough from anything I've seen. So I love, you had talked about early, getting some of these kind of lighter games out of the way.
Yeah.
If you can't have them at the beginning, I agree with you. I like it, but if you can't, then give me this, stack it at the end, and in case something's gone wrong, say any number star gets hurt, you might be able to live without that to get through Atlanta, to get through the Jets, and get that person healthy heading into the playoffs. And there's a very real chance of that in the NFL, that you might have to sit some guys. This is a perfect stretch for that to happen if it comes down to it.
Yeah, and it's I'll mention one here depending on how the season is going. Somebody asked a question here about the flex scheduling. That Tampa game at 4:25 that week, it's Bears at Packers. That's one of those Sunday night games where, what if Aaron Rodgers does get traded and all of a sudden that's actually, Justin Fields against Jordan Love, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, we'll move Josh Allen versus Tom Brady to Sunday Night Football and have that there. That's one that I could definitely see CBS and NBC fighting over, of who gets that prime window, because I agree. I think that's going to be one of the prime games of the season for everybody to want to look at.
Yeah.
Another piece you had mentioned with some of the quarterbacks, I looked at it about where the rookie quarterbacks were. And, I wouldn't have hated getting Zach Wilson. I would have loved maybe that Jets game to be number 2 instead of Miami. We do get the Jets later in the season. Not that I think it's going to terribly matter, but that means Zach Wilson's got, a longer stretch to get his bearings. We don't see him for the first time until week 10.
Stop it.
We get Trevor Lawrence week 9.
McDermott's gonna make these kids' heads spin.
Oh yeah,
they've never seen anything what the safeties in Buffalo are going to do to him.
The interesting part will be, I do believe what I said, that I think New England's going to be better. I'm not naive to think that it may not go perfectly. There's a chance that at the end of the season, we're talking about weeks 16 and weeks 13, we're playing New England. Is that maybe Mac Jones' time by then? If the season doesn't go as planned, or with Cam Newton's physical playing style, you never know if he's going to be able to play all 17 games.
Right.
it's possible that we could also see 3 of the first round quarterbacks this year and see Mac Jones in that window as well, which, like you said, give me all the rookie quarterbacks against Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier. I'll take that all day long.
Yeah.
But that's a possibility as well that we see some of those. And
good 3 dubs. It'll be line them up. Honestly, none of these guys worry me that, especially in their first couple of years in the league, Sean McDermott's just going to have them, and the way this defense, how fast that this defense plays, they're not going to have seen much like it. And just in this division in general, I think Bill Belichick is going to make these other rookies in the division and the young guys in the division same thing. I'm not concerned about Tua right now. I think until he proves that Sean McDermott's defense not too much for him, then he's another guy that I'm not concerned about, and I think that they can rattle. So yeah, give me all these young quarterbacks that we can, because there's going to be some good quarterbacks that they have to play this year, and so give me all the weak ones I can get out of the way.
Yeah, there's a few other fun ones. We talked, obviously, the New Orleans is a Thanksgiving game, so you're talking about Bills Mafia down on Bourbon Street over Thanksgiving, with many people having that Friday off. That could be a raucous game. Miami is a home game on Halloween, so probably a lot of people dressed up in the stands on that game. We'll see how that one goes. Any other games that stuck out to you that you think are going to be kind of interesting in where they stand, maybe that fans aren't looking at as much?
Not really. The New Orleans one, I think that's going to be really cool for Trey, being from the area, being able to be home on Thanksgiving, play
and Marcus Stevenson.
And Marcus Stevenson, assuming he's on the 53.
Yeah, assuming he's on the team in that way.
But definitely at least Trey. Nothing that stands out as crazy. I'm not going to attend probably any. We were talking about that earlier. There may be a chance I'll go to one game. I'm not probably going to attend any. None really stand out to me as I really want to go to this location or stadium this year and experience it.
It's funny you bring that up. A lot of fans were frustrated that we only got one primetime game at home, and that most of the primetime games were on the road. My question is, look at the home games. What game would you have pitched the NFL to put in primetime?
Right.
Maybe off name
Miami.
value, Pittsburgh. Maybe depending on how they think Pittsburgh's going to bounce back this year or how good they're going to be.
Indy,
maybe Indy, but that's such a blah market and not a team that people get excited about. They're a good team. They probably deserve it more than
Carson Wentz could go poorly.
But yeah, Carson Wentz could go completely sideways. So
I could see Miami, like they owe it. Those division games get
that used to be the freebie they'd throw us on Thursday nights when we had to get a primetime.
Honestly,
game.
And for Christ's sakes, I guarantee you, I haven't looked at the other team schedules, but I guarantee you we're going to get some Giants, Cowboys, freaking primetime games. So if the market was bigger, then you'd probably see a home game. I also, there's still some reality that even though the Bills are a good team and the fan base is fun, it's not like the stadium, it's not the showcase of the NFL. The NFL wants to showcase the big, shiny Jerry Jones facilities, Allegiant Stadium, their newest venues. That's what they want on prime time for the world to see. And they are going to always favor bigger markets.
Well, and I'll even add to that, sustained good play and sustained good offensive play is also a bigger draw to the league.
Sure.
And we are coming off a great season. It was our first great offensive season in 25 years.
Yeah.
It was
teams
a
do that
stretch.
all the time, right? Have a good year and fade away.
Yeah, if we start to put together a few of those in a row, I think that we'll see even more. And again, we're not complaining. We have the second most, primetime games of any team, and that Carolina game could be flexed, and I wouldn't be shocked if one of those other Indy New England games get flexed also, that we probably end up with the most primetime games. But we have 4. The most any team got was 5. I certainly think that it's in play to be able to look at that. And let me look real quick. 2 weeks
I'm good
earlier.
On not more. Like you too.
I've been saving it. I've been saving it till the end.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed. We talked about the primetime games. We talked about the non-Eastern time zone games. Do you want to know what that left us, Aaron?
Yeah, tell the people.
11 1 p.m. kickoffs.
Beautiful.
11 games that kick off at 1 p.m. It is the elite football time. That is when football is meant to be played, is 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's fantastic, and we get 11 of them this year. It's glorious.
Yeah, no, that's the best part about this schedule. I don't know why. I'm open for people liking other time football games, but there's nothing better than the setup, the routine, just football at 1 o'clock. For guys like you and I, it's even better because we have to do a post game show. So we do a post game show, and I can still get out and catch the Sunday night football game, do primetime games. We appreciate all you guys that come and hang out with us, but I'm not going to lie, Greg, those primetime post game shows, they're rough. They're rough during the season, guys. We're up pretty late. I'm not a guy that stays up super late at night. And,
starting the show at 11:45 p.m. and finishing, then, and then I do the post game production. I'm going to bed at like 2 in the morning. Yeah. It's not awesome. It's not awesome.
Yeah, so I don't want more of it, and so I'm good. Especially some of those were rough last year, right? The Tennessee, Kansas City, like some of these games that are,
emotional and frustrating.
Very emotional and frustrating, and so yeah, less of that type of exposure to emotional football, and more 1 o'clock. Because even when your team, when it goes poorly at 1 o'clock, it doesn't matter. No one else is watching. They're all watching Red Zone. They'll actually feel bad for you, but everyone's watching when it's in prime time, and you have to watch your team suffer with the world.
So it's going to be interesting how we go about all these other pieces and where they happen. But, I think that the Bills we already knew who the opponents were. Another thing that I like to look at is who the quarterbacks are that you play. So we know we play some good teams, but I will say when you go through this schedule, I see 3 that concern me, depending on who you want to count as. We play Mahomes. That's obviously a huge one. We play Tom Brady. He obviously showed last year he still has it. And
Don't sleep on Tannehill.
Is still there. And no, Tannehill was my third.
Okay.
Tannehill was the third best quarterback we play. Okay. Once you get past that, I guess if Deshaun Watson plays for Houston, that he would be in that mix as well. But the rest of that team ain't anything special.
Matt Ryan's a good quarterback.
Right. But, you're talking about when you get to that next tier, the Ryans, the Roethlisbergers, the Cam Newtons, you're talking that, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, that they're not in that top tier. They're not Russell Wilson. They're not Aaron Rodgers. They're not, that top tier of where they are. I do think that the Bills have a reasonable schedule from a quarterback standpoint. Obviously, Mahomes is the best. We play him, but I don't know that we play anyone else in the top, depending on where you have Brady. A lot of those other younger guys. I think
Fitz slander is only going to last so long before you tell me where you're going to rank. I'm worried. I'm always worried about Fitz.
One last visit from Fitzmagic is delightful, and by week 3, he should still be the starting quarterback. He should, still be right there. So I God bless him. We get one more game with Fitzmagic at Buffalo, and it's one of those games that hopefully. It's not that close of a game, but with their defense, you never know. That certainly could be a really close, tough game. And we may be hoping on Fitztragic for the end of the game to wrap it up.
And the Trevor Lawrence one's going to be interesting. I think because
he's good, man.
Yeah, he's good. I think even if the Jags aren't good, which I don't project, I think that's still going to be a fun matchup. It's a game that the Bills should win, but at least you're going to get something fun and exciting about the NFL as a whole. I think everyone wants that kind of success of a transcended type player, and to see that happen and be one of those teams that plays him first, even though I think this defense will be able to handle him. He could be probably, by the time the season's done, one of the top quarterbacks they face, just a pure talented QBs.
Sure. And I think that similar to that Jacksonville, we talked about it with the Tennessee game. I think Jacksonville is going to be in trouble because their defense isn't any good. I think Tennessee's offense is good. They didn't do much anything to fix that defense, and that defense was wretched last year. Some record-breaking bad defense in stretches.
Right.
So there's some things in that direction. Looking at it, I do think that they play some tough defensive lines. You talk about Pittsburgh, you talk about Washington, Tampa Bay. Those are probably 3 of the toughest
Kansas City was
defensive lines in the NFL.
Kansas City destroyed us.
Some pressure. Ate us alive in the game from a pressure standpoint. So just some things to watch out for. Any other takeaways or thoughts on the schedule for this year besides the obvious that we're going 17-0?
Yeah, I mean 17-0. It's week to week. I'm already gonna start it's a week to week league. I don't give a ton of weight into we do it for the show and to kind of talk it out as fans, but really, if I'm putting on an analyst cap, I don't give a ton of weight to going over the schedule right now and not even know. I don't even know what this Bills team is going to look like from the last time that we saw them. Yeah, there's a lot to go.
Signings that haven't been made.
Exactly. Bills could get better tomorrow by signing Steven Nelson. I don't know what's coming. So it's hard to weigh it. I don't follow other teams close enough to know who the guys that their teams are excited about. That's probably the most fun about doing our ramp ups to games. So it really is. I'm glad the schedule is here. It means football's that much closer. You know, the official things that show that the normal season's coming. We didn't have this last year. We weren't sure at this point a year ago.
Yeah.
No one was sure if a season was happening or not. So we're returning to normalcy. We're getting our groove back. Rookie mini camp, that's just a couple of days away before rookies report for mini camp. And then you're into the OTAs. Things are happening and football is coming back. And so I'm with the excitement of it, but none of this stuff actually matters to me until we can get football. But it's fun to talk about till then.
One quick game I'll throw in there that's not on the Bills' schedule. I love it that the Jets have to play Sam Darnold and the Panthers in week 1, because I would love nothing more than for him to look fantastic and to light up the Jets and to have the New York City media lose their minds that they gave away Darnold and then he lights them up in week 1. So I'm rooting for that.
Sure.
To give people a heads up here, obviously we're going to be taking you guys through the rest of the offseason. Aaron and I wanted to do this because we knew that it was breaking news right as it was happening. It was silly to continue on with some of our other planned things when this is what everybody was going to be talking about. So we wanted to give you guys our live reaction to the schedule release. We are going to get back into our draft reaction next week. Going to go over the 4 offensive players, some offensive UDFAs, and some of the best available offensive free agents still on the market. We'll talk through that next week. And then maybe one more draft reaction. We might have a special guest come on and talk about some of the different guys who are drafted by the Bills. And then we're going to switch gears into position previews and kind of breaking down who the Bills have on this team and what it's going to look like as we go from here all the way through the OTAs, the mini camps, and into training camp. We'll break down each of those position previews week by week, let you know the contract situation, what the future looks like, who's there, who's a cut candidate, who's a Brandon Bean trade cut down day comp pick bingo thing that he does, and kind of talk through all those things. And we'll be here for you guys all the way through the offseason.
Yeah, this is the part of the offseason here that gets real fun and trying to figure out what your next season team is going to be. And I love going through those position groups. So I'm excited to get sort of close the chapter on this draft and get into what this 2021 Bills team is going to look like. And so look forward to those episodes with you, man.
Absolutely. So make sure wherever you guys are listening to this, help us out. Give us a rating, give us a like, give us a review. Go out and tell somebody about the show. Share it on Instagram, share it on Facebook, share it on wherever you're listening, and let other people know about it. It helps us a ton. If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're listening to this over your Google Podcasts or iTunes, please subscribe to the show. It really helps us out a lot. We put in a lot of work for you guys, and that really goes a long ways to be able to support all the work that we do for everybody. Aaron, tell the good people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me at Aaron Quinn 716, and I just want to send out real quick thoughts and prayers to all the Sabres Twitter folks out there that with everything that you're going through. I don't feel it, but I feel for you.
Yeah, I watching people's reaction to those pressers was tough. I
sincerely
remember watching my GM say he wasn't privy 37 times, so I can feel the pain. But
I feel bad. I do.
Man, it was rough. Yeah. Thank you guys. You guys can find me at Greg Thompson. Come and check it out. Always having fun with Bills fans, going back and forth for everything. On behalf of Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Thompson. You have been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.